At my birthday dinner. My wife was carefully fixing her assistant's tie. Doesn't Jake look so sharp? Honey. I glanced at Jake, chest thrown back. Face glowing with self-satisfaction, and scoffed. Sharp. Stick a feather on him and he'd pass for a fighting cock all riled up. That night? I video called my father-in-law. All right. Old coot. That's strike one. Remember our deal, only 3 chances. The old man bared his teeth in what he probably thought was a smile. I made a face. Fucking hideous. It looked worse than a cry. I sighed after hanging up. Pretending I didn't care would be a lie. In the 5 years we'd been married, Olivia had always played the part of the perfect wife. But acting like it cut me deep would be a stretch too. I'd married her to keep a promise. Plain and simple. So yeah, I was a little bothered. Later that night, I stood on the balcony smoking, when a pair of pale arms slid around my waist from behind. The soft scent of body wash drifted to my nose. What are you thinking about, honey? She rested her chin on my shoulder, her damp hair tickling my neck. I pried her hands off me coldly and stepped away. I knew exactly what she was doing, making a move. But I wasn't in the mood. Not tonight. I turned to face her, voice steady and commanding. Olivia. I don't want Jake as your assistant. Fire him. She blinked. Confused. Why? I didn't explain. Didn't say another word. Just walked to the guest bedroom under her bewildered gaze. As far as I was concerned, when I said something, I meant it. You either followed through, or you pushed back. But you didn't ask why. If she thought bringing her male assistant to my birthday dinner and fixing his tie in front of everyone was normal, there was no point talking about it. We had different values. Explaining wouldn't change a thing. I was lying on the guest bed, eyes closed and resting, when the door creaked open. Olivia poked her head in, voice tentative. Honey, is this about me bringing Jake to the dinner tonight? I opened my eyes and looked at her calmly. I'm sorry. I didn't think it through. I just thought he'd never been to a party like that, so I'd bring him along to broaden his horizons. She apologized as she stepped inside, then climbed gently onto the bed and nuzzled up against my chest, trying to placate me. I'm so sorry, baby. Nothing's going on between Jake and me. But if it made you uncomfortable, that's on me. Please forgive me. I promise it won't happen again. Seeing her so eager to please, my resolve softened a little. Olivia. That was the first time. I wanted to be the last. She immediately held up her right hand, swearing solemnly that she'd never do it again. Her hands wandered over my body, helping me out of my clothes. Happy birthday, honey. I'm your present tonight. Do you like it? With that, she slipped off her nightgown, revealing a large bow tied across her body. I was surprised, and more than a little tempted. She leaned in, her voice low and seductive in my ear. Come on, baby. Open your birthday gift. I loved how she teased me. Out in the world, she was cold, poised, always keeping everyone at arm's length. But with me, she was warm, bold, unapologetically alluring. That contrast drove me wild. Ours had been an arranged marriage, but from day one, she'd put in the work to make it work. She'd done everything a good wife should. All in all, I'd been satisfied with her. The rest of the night passed in silence. When I woke up the next morning, Olivia was already gone. As CEO of Hale Corporation, she was incredibly dedicated to her work. I'd told her more than once she didn't have to push herself so hard. Given my family's wealth, keeping Hale Corporation afloat was nothing. And Dad only had me as an heir sooner or later. It'd all be mine anyway. But every time I told her to take it easy, she'd just smile softly at me. I'm not doing this for the money, honey. I want to build Hale into something big, so I can stand beside you as an equal. She always knew exactly what to say to make me feel like I was the one in charge. It fed my ego. Stroked that male need to be in control. I liked how things were between us. After lunch, I sauntered over to the Carter Group building. I pushed open the door to the CEO's office and found Dad sitting in my chair. His sudden appearance caught me off guard. He rarely set foot in the office after retiring. What's up, old man? I asked casually, dropping my bag on the desk. Dad frowned, immediately launching into a lecture. Sleeping till noon every day, even if the company's yours. You can't be this careless. I just smiled and waited for him to get to the point. Can't you take a page out of your wife's book? She works her ass off every day. My mood soured. So Olivia had called him. Spit it out. What did she tell you? Dad huffed. Your daughter-in-law called me this morning. Apologized over and over about bringing her assistant to your birthday dinner last night. Said she'd upset you. I frowned. Irritation coiling tight in my chest. Dad ignored my glare and kept going. Liam. I'm just saying swamped with work. What's wrong with bringing an assistant along? I'd heard enough. I cut him off. You done? Then get out. Ex-chairman. I've got work to do. At my dismissal. Dad's face turned thunderous. He stood up and stormed out. After he left, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the city as I turned the whole thing over in my head. Olivia and I were married. Our problems were ours to solve behind closed doors. Family business stayed in the family. Even from parents. Olivia had crossed a line. I didn't blame Dad. I knew he liked Olivia. Thought the world of her. But I was the one married to her. I had my own boundaries. And Dad couldn't force his opinions on me. Sure. Dad admired how hard she worked. But I came in at noon every day and still got everything done efficiently. Why punch a clock just for the sake of it? Times change. People's mindsets should too. I couldn't wrap my head around her reasoning. So I decided to talk to her that night. I needed to know what she was playing at. At 5 o'clock. I grabbed my briefcase and left the office. I'd barely stepped into the parking garage when I spotted Olivia's car parked right next to mine. It was odd. She never left work before 8. What had gotten into her today? When she saw me, she hopped out of the car and walked over with a smile. Hey, honey. You off work? I nodded. Scarlett's throwing a get-together tonight. Invited both of us. I figured I'd come pick you up. Scarlett was her best friend. Part of our same social circle. Olivia and I always went to those parties, but we usually showed up separately. You could have just called. I'm perfectly capable of driving myself. She smiled and looped her arm through mine, leading me toward her car. I got off early today, so I thought I'd swing by. I nodded along. When we reached her car, I reached for the passenger door and fury exploded in my chest. Jake was slouched in the passenger seat, shoes off, feet propped up on the dashboard. When he saw me, he didn't even bother putting his feet down. Just tossed off a casual greeting. I stared him down. And he held my gaze. Not backing down an inch. It made me sick to my stomach. I slammed the door shut hard and stormed toward my own car. Olivia hurried after me, rushing to explain. Honey. Jake's my assistant. He needs to meet my friends. Get to know how things work in these circles. I just stared at her, saying nothing. Until she looked away. Guilty and unable to hold my eye. I shook her hand off and got into my car. It wasn't that I was being patient. I just wasn't about to make a scene and argue with her in public. Olivia got back in her car and pulled out ahead, leading the way. I followed behind her, my mind racing. She'd been acting so strange lately. Olivia wasn't the type to overstep. She knew exactly how I'd react to this. So what was her endgame? She couldn't be testing my limits. Could she? I couldn't figure out what the hell was going through her head. We arrived at the private club. Olivia slipped her arm through mine. Warm and affectionate. I didn't pull away. You had to keep up appearances in front of friends. Jake trailed behind us. Head down. Quiet as a mouse. God knows what he was thinking. I didn't bother with him. I walked arm in arm with Olivia into the private room. Scarlett looked up as we entered and hurried to arrange seats for us. She didn't so much as glance at Jake, who followed right behind. He stood there awkwardly, completely ignored. Slowly, his face flushed. Reth could feel the humiliation. Plain as day. He stared stubbornly at Olivia. Waiting. I sat down and watched him with idle amusement. He looked like a walking joke. The other friends followed my gaze, all turning to look at him. Jake's eyes instantly welled up. I was just about to bet he'd storm out in shame when Olivia spoke up. Jake. Come sit next to me. All that hurt vanished in an instant. A grin spread across his face. And he trotted over to sit right beside her. Shoulder to shoulder. Scarlett and the others stared at Olivia in disbelief. But Olivia acted like nothing was wrong. She picked up the teapot and carefully rinsed his dishes for him. I turned my head, watching her with a sardonic look. No one spoke. The air in the room was thick with awkwardness. As the host, Scarlett finally broke the silence. Thanks for coming, everyone. My treat tonight. We can't let this group drift apart. Can we? Liam. She'd spoken to me first. Clearly worried I'd blow up at any second. I smiled and nodded. No trace of anger on my face. Seeing I wasn't about to make a scene. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The mood loosened up. Olivia spent the whole time whispering to Jake, teaching him the rules and tricks of networking at events like this. Ignoring everyone else. Scarlett had had enough. She stood up, glass in hand. Liam. Olivia, this one's for you too. You two have the best marriage out of all of us. Here's to forever. The message was loud and clear. Aimed straight at Jake. Scarlett was sharp. I'd give her that. She was buttering me up while reminding Olivia and warning Jake all at once. I lifted my glass and said thanks. Olivia reached for hers. But Jake stopped her. Liv. Let me take this one for you. He picked up her glass. Scarlett's face hardened. She fixed Jake with a cold stare. I smiled, watching Olivia with keen interest. I wanted to see how she'd handle this. Olivia froze for a second. Then laughed helplessly. Jake. You can't drink this for me. But he was stubborn. Why not? You're my boss. And you're like a sister to me. If they're gonna push you to drink, I've got your back. Scarlett had a short fuse. She slammed her glass down on the table. Who the hell do you think you are? Playing the innocent little victim. Everyone at this table's been around the block. We can see right through your little act. She turned to Olivia. Annoyed. Olivia. What is this? A friend's dinner. And you bring a random guy along. Jake jumped, caught off guard by her outburst. He looked at Olivia, all wide-eyed and wounded. Olivia stood up and took the glass from his hand. Calm down. Scarlett. He's young. Don't assume the worst of him. Scarlett blinked. Stunned. She couldn't believe Olivia was defending him. The rest of the table looked at Olivia too. Expressions shifting to amusement. Olivia drained her glass. Then smiled at me. Hey. Don't you dare nurse that drink. Honey. I set my glass down. A dry laugh on my lips. Actually, I don't feel like drinking anymore. Why don't you have your assistant finish it for me? Olivia. Scarlett. Everyone at the table went pale. The implication was huge. Olivia opened her mouth to explain. But Jake grabbed her arm. It's fine. Liv. I'll drink it for him. He stepped around Olivia and reached for my glass. Scarlett snapped. Are you fucking insane? I toasted Liam and Olivia husband and wife. What the hell gives you the right? You married to her or something? Before Jake could reply, Olivia cut in. Irritated. Scarlett. There's no need to be so harsh. He doesn't mean anything by it. He's just naive. I picked up my glass. Smiling at Jake. You want to drink it? The idiot nodded. Confused. I didn't hold back. I hurled the glass straight at his face. Then wiped my hand off like I'd touched something dirty. Lost my appetite. You guys have fun. I stood up, walked past Olivia, and headed for the door. I'd barely reached the door when someone grabbed my wrist. Honey. Don't go. I shook her off in disgust and walked out without looking back. I'd barely stepped into the hallway when arms wrapped around me from behind. Honey. You've got this all wrong. Jake's so young. He had no idea what that toast meant. I turned around. Olivia looked frantic. And Jake stood right behind her. I laughed. Why don't you go comfort your precious naive little assistant first? He looks like he's about to cry. Olivia turned around and frowned at Jake. What are you doing out here? That did it? Jake started crying for real. I'm sorry. Liv. I was worried about you. That Liv sent a shiver of revulsion down my spine. Worried. About what? That I'd hit her. Olivia looked at him and sighed. Helpless. It's fine. Jake. But. Thanks for caring. I guess. Watching the two of them play happy big sister and little brother made my stomach turn. Enjoy your little act. I'm out of here. I pried Olivia's arms off me and walked straight out. I drove home and called my father-in-law on video again. All right. Old coot. That idiot of yours has provoked me for the second time. Only one chance left. The old man sounded shocked. That can't be right. Son-in-law. I called her and warned her after last time. My voice went cold. What? You think I'm making this up? He waved his hands hurriedly. Of course not. You'd never lie about something like this. I'll talk to her properly this time. I promise. No more mistakes. I sighed. I hope so. After hanging up, I stared at the wedding photo above the bed, lost in thought. On our wedding day, Olivia had clung to me like I was some priceless treasure. Back then, she'd loved me. She'd wanted to marry me. But now, defending some poor college kid she'd been sponsoring right out in the open. What the hell was that about? I couldn't figure it out. And I didn't feel like trying. By midnight, I'd already slept for a while. And Olivia still wasn't home. I called her. No answer. I tried a few more times. Then lost my patience and went back to sleep. When I woke up at dawn, the spot next to me was empty. She'd clearly stayed out all night. Without hesitation, I picked up my phone and called her again. It was picked up almost immediately. Mr. Carter. You looking for Ms. Hale? Jake's voice sent white-hot fury surging through me. Why are you answering her phone? Where is she? Jake's tone was casual. Almost smug. Oh. Liv. She's still sleeping. She was exhausted last night. I didn't believe a single word out of his mouth. Olivia knew boundaries. She'd never do something this reckless. Who is it? A sleepy female voice drifted through the line. My chest tightened. Nobody. Just someone unimportant. Go back to sleep. Liv. Okay. I hung up straight away and stared out the window in silence. Turns out people are the hardest thing to predict. The person you think is loyal can cheat. The thing you think could never happen. It happens anyway. I got dressed. My mind made up. A notification pinged on my phone. I opened it. It was a photo from Jake Olivia. Fast asleep in bed. I took a screenshot and saved it immediately. I drove to the office and told my lawyer to draw up divorce papers. Near the end of the day, Olivia texted me. Honey. Dad wants us over for dinner tonight. I'm heading over early to help. Just come straight over after work. I stared at the message and scoffed. Perfect. I'd settle everything once and for all. I pulled up to the Hale family estate. Olivia's car was parked out front. So she was already there. I stepped inside and found Jake serving William tea. The old man was watching him with obvious impatience. Jake didn't seem fazed at all. Just kept buttering him up. When William saw me, he stood up quickly. Son-in-law. Good to see you. I smiled. Amused. So you figured out what's going on? Huh? He wiped sweat from his brow. Awkward. Yeah. I get it now. I snapped. The hell you do? I shot him a sharp look and sat down right at the head of the table. Jake leaned in, trying to be friendly. Mr. Carter. You're here. I looked at him but kept my cool. Now wasn't the time to deal with him. I'd take care of the Olivia problem first. Assistant Miller. Interesting that Ms. Hale brought you to a family dinner. What exactly are you to her? Anyway. At my sarcasm, Jake immediately put on his best innocent, well-behaved act. I scoffed internally. Nice act? This from the guy who'd sent me that photo to provoke me that morning. Olivia walked out of the kitchen carrying a plate of food. She heard my words and slammed the dish down hard on the table. Honey. What are you talking about? I brought Jake over so he could meet Dad. I've always thought of Jake as a little brother. All these years. I stared at her. Angry and unrecognizable. This woman didn't feel like the wife I'd been married to for 3 years. All those days and nights together. All that intimacy felt like a lifetime ago. We sat down. William and I faced each other across the table. Olivia sat next to me. And Jake pressed right up beside her. No one spoke. We all ate in silence. Each lost in our own thoughts. Jake was the first to break the quiet. Liv. I can't reach the shrimp. Can you pass me some? I want to try your cooking. Olivia immediately scooped one up and dropped it into his bowl. Gentle and attentive. I set my chopsticks down and gave William a dry, knowing look. He set his down too, staring back at me helplessly. Jake didn't sense the tension at all. If anything, he whined at Olivia. Voice all cutesy. Liv. I've never had this kind of shrimp before. I don't know how to peel them. Olivia gave him an indulgent look. Set her chopsticks down. And peeled it for him. I laughed and spread my hands at William. He had nothing to say. When she finished peeling the shrimp, Olivia finally noticed the heavy silence. Why are you all staring at me? Eat up. I wiped my hands on a napkin. I'm good. I lost my appetite. Too disgusted to eat. With that, I pulled the printed divorce papers out of my briefcase and slid them across the table to her. Read through it. Sign if you have no issues. Olivia picked them up. Confused. Then her face drained of color. Liam, what is this? I didn't answer her. I just looked over at William. He looked pained. Son-in-law. Maybe give her one more ch. I cut him off. Don't. You trying to make me sick? He shook his head. Defeated. Olivia looked back and forth between us. Totally lost. What are you two talking about? What's going on? While no one was looking, Jake quietly reached over and grabbed the papers from in front of Olivia. He flipped through them, eyes lighting up with barely hidden glee. William looked at his daughter, the girl he'd raised, and sighed with regret. Olivia. Sign it. Olivia shot to her feet. Dad. Have you lost your mind? Liam and I are fine. Why on earth would we get a divorce? I could barely believe my ears. Fine. Olivia. What gave you the idea we were fine? She stared at me, stunned. Honey. What do you mean? Calmly. I pulled out my phone and pulled up our chat. Sure enough, the provocative photo Jake had sent that morning was gone. He'd unsent it. But I wasn't worried. I'd screenshotted it immediately. I found the image and shoved the phone right in her face. Look at it. You didn't actually think I'd stay with a woman who stays out all night, alone with another man, did you? Olivia stared at the photo, like she was trying to piece together what had happened. Then she spun around and glared at Jake, who was still grinning over the divorce papers. Jake. What are you smiling at? You happy we're getting divorced? His smile dropped instantly. He looked at her, wounded. Why did you send my husband that photo? Jake panicked. Liv. I didn't mean anything by it. He asked where you were. So I sent him a picture. I just didn't want him to worry. He looked even more hurt now that she'd yelled at him. But Olivia had none of her usual patience for him. She grabbed her own phone and started scrolling. All my missed calls had been deleted. There was a record of an unsent message on our chat. Her hand shook as she pointed at him. Jake. You bastard. Who told you could touch my phone? Who told you to provoke my husband? I sat next to William, watching them turn on each other with quiet amusement. Olivia finally snapped. She slapped him hard across the face. Jake held his cheek, staring at her like he couldn't believe it. But Liv, you always leave your phone with me. I always answer your calls for you. Olivia lunged at him, hitting and kicking wildly. Don't you dare talk back. When have I ever left my phone with you? What do you want from me? Jake. Jake didn't fight back. He just yelped and begged her to stop. You told me. You said you liked being with me. That only with me did you feel alive. Shut up. Olivia was feral now, hitting harder and harder. All traces of her usual poise gone. Eventually, she wore herself out. She turned to me, eyes full of despair. She ignored Jake completely. She dropped to her knees in front of me and clung to my legs. Honey. You have to believe me. I love you. I never, ever wanted to cheat on you. I nodded. Now I finally got why she'd been acting this way. It was simple. With me, she felt small, pressured, insecure. With Jake, she was the one in control, the one calling all the shots. But what did that have to do with me? Olivia. If you think I'd put up with you staying out all night with another man, you're delusional. I'm not crazy. And I'm not a doormat. She swore up and down. Frantic. Honey. I promise. Nothing happened. I'm innocent. I sighed. Exasperated. How could she not get it? I don't care if nothing happened. To me, it's all the same. Do you understand? William walked over and helped Olivia up off the floor. Sweetheart. Just sign it. Liam and I had an agreement long before you two married. He won't change his mind. Olivia stopped crying. She stared at her father, confused. Dad. What agreement? He sighed and told her the whole story. My dad had been a college kid from a tiny rural town. He'd worked his fingers to the bone to build a life for himself in New York. Then he met my mom. She'd admired his grit and determination, and married him against her family's wishes. With her family's backing. Dad's career took off. Within a few years, he was a prominent, well-respected man. In short, Dad was a classic self-made man who'd pulled himself up from nothing. He had the talent. And he had the luck. But it didn't last. When I was 6 years old, my mom fell for someone else. She thought it was no big deal. Rich girls like her grew up seeing couples have affairs on the side all the time. But Dad was a traditional man. He divorced her. No hesitation. The divorce was huge news. Everyone in town was talking about it. Afterwards, my mom resented him. She couldn't understand why he couldn't just look the other way. It wasn't like some fling threatened his position. After all, so she used her family's influence to sabotage his company at every turn. Dad had it rough back then. He had to take care of me and fight to keep the business afloat. That's when William stepped in. He held a patent that could turn everything around. As a friend of Dad's, he'd been generous enough to sign the patent over to him for free. That's how Dad survived the onslaught and thrived. One night, drunk at a dinner, the two of them had betrothed us to each other. Arranged our marriage before we'd even grown up. That's how Olivia and I ended up together. But before we got married, I'd gone to William and laid out my condition. If Olivia disappointed me 3 times, I could file for divorce. And he couldn't stop me. After William finished speaking, Olivia looked at me, heartbroken. Honey, did you ever really love me? If you did, why would you make a deal like that? I was speechless. What kind of backwards logic was that? She had the nerve to be disappointed. Olivia, can we not do this? Be reasonable. Let's end this cleanly. After the divorce. But she didn't wait for me to finish. She grabbed her car keys and ran out. Jake followed right behind her. I looked at William. Exasperated. He looked right back at me. Just as helpless. After leaving the Hale house, I went straight to the Carter family estate. Dad had lived alone all these years. Just the housekeeper and the staff. No one else close to him. He'd never remarried after Mom. All for my sake. He'd been both father and mother to me. I knew how hard it had been for him. So I owed it to him to tell him about the divorce in person. I walked in, greeted the housekeeper, and headed to the living room. Dad was there, drinking tea. When he saw me alone, he frowned. Why were you by yourself? Where's Olivia? I sat down across from him and poured myself a cup. Ex-daughter-in-law. I'm divorcing her. Dad's face darkened. Don't be ridiculous. William's family saved ours. You can't just divorce his daughter like this. Thankfully I'd always had a good temper. Or I would have snapped at him right there. Pay back the favor all you want. But don't use me as collateral. I pushed my anger down and told him everything about Olivia. The college kid she'd been sponsoring. All of it. Dad frowned the whole time I talked. When I finished, I teased him. Kinda reminds you of Mom. Doesn't she? Dad shot me an annoyed look. Olivia's not even close to being on your mother's level. Fair enough. My grandfather's family was still one of the most prominent in New York. Olivia didn't hold a candle to Mom. After a moment, Dad sighed. Such a shame about that girl. She was such a good kid. How'd she end up like this? All right. If you want a divorce, get one. I'd known he wouldn't stand in my way once he heard the truth. Thankfully, we didn't have kids. And we'd signed a prenuptial agreement before the wedding. But only a shame for her. What about me? 5 years of marriage. Weren't those 5 years of my life too? I said goodbye to Dad and drove home. As I pulled up to my house, I saw someone kneeling on the doorstep. I honked twice. But they didn't move. Just stayed kneeling there like they hadn't heard. Sighing, I got out of the car. I walked over and realized it was Olivia. When she saw me, she crawled toward me on her knees. Olivia, always so put together, looked a mess. Pale face, hair wild, tears streaking down her cheeks. In the middle of the night, it was downright eerie. I stepped back, holding out a hand to stop her from getting closer. Why didn't you go inside? What are you doing kneeling out here? Her voice was thick with tears. I didn't have the face to go in. Honey. I glanced around. Didn't see Jake anywhere. Where's your little assistant? She hung her head. Voice small. I told him to leave. Got rid of him. I shook my head. Half annoyed. Half amused. I didn't get it. Wasn't she obsessed with feeling in control? A guy like that, someone she could wrap around her finger. A backup plan. Why throw him away so easily? I led her inside. She fussed over me, bringing tea and water, waiting on me hand and foot. When she was done, she stood beside me, head down, quiet as a mouse. I told her to sit across from me. I'd wait until she calmed down. Then we'd talk frankly. This divorce was happening. No dragging it out. A messy court battle would be bad for both our companies. For all these years, we presented ourselves as the perfect happy couple. If the divorce blew up into a huge scandal, both our businesses would take a hit. Olivia, if you have any conditions, name them. I'll do what I can to make this fair for you. I meant it. I'd never wanted to get revenge on her. Not for the sake of our marriage, but for William's sake. Without him, my family wouldn't be where we are today. I owed him that much respect. Olivia looked at me, eyes pleading, as I talked about divorce. Honey, can we not do this? I swear. Nothing ever happened between Jake and me. I was done. Had I not been clear enough? Olivia, this divorce is happening. No room for negotiation. Understand? Even if nothing happened. I don't want you anymore. She looked confused. But why? Honey. I sighed. Because you checked out. You broke the one rule that matters in marriage. Loyalty. Cheating isn't just physical. It doesn't work that way. Betrayal doesn't come in degrees. There's no such thing as a little bit unfaithful. She looked bitter. But she couldn't argue. When she realized I wouldn't budge, she gave a bitter, hollow laugh. You know what? Honey, being with you is exhausting. I stayed quiet. Let her talk. You're so far above me. So brilliant. I've pushed myself to the bone just to stand beside you. So no one can say I married you for your money. I've been so careful about everything. Playing the perfect wife. Terrified of making one mistake. But even then, I still feel like I'm miles away from you. I didn't mean to check out. But with Jake, I feel human. I don't have to worry about anything. I can just be myself. I nodded. That's why marriages work best when people are from the same world. No pressure. No power imbalance. But Olivia, that's not an excuse for emotional infidelity. You have to understand. What separates people from animals is self-control. Morals. You can say wanting something new is animal instinct. But if you don't restrain that instinct, what's the difference between you and an animal? You knew what you were signing up for when you got married. You promised to be faithful to each other. In the end, Olivia agreed to the divorce. But she still couldn't wrap her head around it. As we walked out of the county clerk's office, she turned to me. Liam, why did you make that 3 strikes deal with Dad before we married? Did you know I'd check out on us? I gave her a tired look. I'm not a psychic. How would I know the future? I paused. Then went on. Truth is, I never believed in marriage. For as long as I can remember. My parents did nothing but fight and give each other the silent treatment. Until they got divorced. I made up my mind back then. Either I wouldn't marry at all. Or I'd marry someone I loved. Someone who shared my values. Someone who'd never betray me. Olivia looked wistful. Maybe our marriage was doomed from the start. It was just a promise between our parents. Wasn't it? I thought about it for a second. Not exactly. We were happy. Once. For a while there. I thought spending my life with you wouldn't be so bad. Olivia smiled. She bowed her head slightly. A quiet thank you. Thank you, Liam. I hope you find that person someday. The one who loves you back. Who sees the world the same way you do. Who'll never betray you. With that, she turned and walked away. I didn't see her tears. But 2 drops caught the wind and landed on my lip. Salty. Maybe. Maybe ED fin here. But if I didn't, I'd never marry just for the sake of it. I'd already seen what a bitter, messy marriage looked like. I didn't need to live it. After the divorce, I cut all business ties with Hale Corporation. I wouldn't get revenge on Olivia. But I wouldn't help her either. We were strangers now. That was fine by me. But Jake. I wasn't letting him off the hook. He'd ruined my marriage. Made a mockery of me. If I let him walk away, I'd regret it forever. When I heard how Jake was doing, I smiled. He was miserable. Olivia had fired him. Taken back everything she'd ever given him. He was still in his senior year of college. And with Olivia's funding cut off, he couldn't handle it. He'd gotten used to the easy life. The nice things. He couldn't go back to the kid from the middle of nowhere. Scraping by day after day. Soon after, his senior thesis got rejected. He resubmitted it. Rejected again. One more strike and he'd have to delay graduation. He was terrified. Without his diploma and degree, he couldn't face his parents back home. Couldn't face the neighbors who'd pinned all their hopes on him. Couldn't face all the hard work he'd put in to get this far. He went looking for Olivia, begging her to pull some strings for him. But the Hale Corporation building, where he'd once walked in like he owned the place, he couldn't even get through the front door now. The third submission deadline came and went. He never even got to see Olivia. He had no choice but to turn in his thesis anyway. And no surprise, it got rejected again. No shock there. I'd made sure of it. I'd pledged to fund a new Libra Re for the university. After that, the president himself had ordered that Jake's thesis be held to the highest possible standard. The defense committee weren't idiots. They knew exactly what highest standard meant. Jake broke. With no Olivia to run to, he had nowhere to turn. He started causing scenes at the president's office, at his advisor's office, screaming and demanding answers. But right in the middle of his biggest tantrum, an old man in worn work clothes and scuffed work boots marched up and slapped him so hard his head snapped to the side. Jake clapped a hand to his face, horrified. "Dad, what are you doing here?" The old man didn't say a word. He just started hitting him, kicking him, laying into him hard. Next to him, an old woman sobbed, wiping tears from her face. "How could you be so shameless? Running off to the city to be some rich woman's kept boy. How are your father and I supposed to show our faces back home?" Jake was totally beaten down. Back in their small town, this kind of thing was taken seriously. Especially for a son. He'd been the first college student in the whole family. The pride of the entire village. The teachers stepped in right before things got deadly. They hated Jake as much as anyone. But they couldn't just let him get beaten to death on school grounds. The old man and woman dragged Jake away with them, watching the three of them walk off. I smiled. Satisfied. Yeah. I'd sent people to his hometown to spread the word about what he'd done. Now everyone back in that village knew he'd been a kept boy for the woman who'd sponsored him. That he'd broken up a marriage. They called him an ungrateful bastard. Said the Miller family had raised a shameless male whore. After Jake left, I wondered what he'd do next. He couldn't go back to the village. And he'd never make it in New York again. He'd have to leave. Start over somewhere else. Sure enough, I was right. He moved down south. But he'd barely finished his first day on the job when my anonymous tip showed up. The company fired him on the spot. He tried again. And again. But every company he applied to, I sent the proof right to their HR department. That was it. Jake had nowhere left to go. Not long after, I got word that he'd killed himself. I saw Olivia a few times after that. At private parties and events. We just nod at each other from across the room. That was all. People who loved each other can't be friends, not after the hurt they've caused. But they can't be enemies either, not after the love they shared. So strangers it is. We'll go our separate ways. And we'll never see each other again. Hey there. Could you rate this story in the comments? Use a scale of 1 to 10. Please, I am begging you. It really means a lot to me. And if you like this kind of content, don't forget to hit follow.